You're listening to Lemon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Welcome to this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. We are so excited about our guest today. Before we get into that, though, I do want to introduce myself. I am Randi Lemons, author in the fantasy world, or R.L. Rose to those of you in the romance community. And I'm joined today by my amazing, amazing partner, Kathy. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, y'all. I'm Kathy Ireland. I am an avid audiobook reader. We say reader around here because we're still reading, even though we're listening. And I also do audiobook production for authors. So that's pretty much me.
Yep. And if anyone is interested in having their services on the show or broadcast throughout our social medias, if you head over to our Patreon account, it's a great way to support the show and get your services out there. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, we're so excited, and I'm so excited to introduce the talented Carmen. Carmen, would you like to introduce and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Of course. Hello. I'm Carmen Seantel, and I'm a voice actor. I'm an audiobook narrator. I've been doing it for just over a year. My anniversary from my first ever audition was like 9 days ago. So a year and 9 days of auditioning, and getting rejected, and then getting some jobs. And so now I'm an audiobook narrator and a voice actor, and I've got a few audiobooks out there on Audible that I've been able to have the pleasure and honor to voice for several authors. I've started to work with some production companies, and I will be starring in some audio dramas coming to Spotify in the next few months. So it's fun.
Ooh.
So that's something new that Spotify is doing, right?
Audio dramas. So this is, you know how like there's podcasts that people do and then they put together like their own stories and they have the author and then they have the producers and they have a multicast of folks that come in, and it's like the 50s radio shows before TV was like a big thing, you know, or even the 40s maybe, I don't know, when the radio shows were big and you'd have a full cast of people. So that's what's happening now. You've got these smaller production companies, these authors, these groups of people that are coming together to just put together a full production, a full story over the course of 10 plus episodes. And one of those I was able to audition for, and I'll be doing 2 for that same author coming up. And they'll be putting that out there on Spotify and a few other platforms as well. So it's not by Spotify, it's just on Spotify.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think audiobooks was what I was thinking of that they are recently doing, or there's something new in that world.
Yeah. So Spotify used to be known, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe that Find Away Voices was a way that it was a production company for audiobooks. But then I believe they were either bought out by Spotify or Spotify joined with them. And now Find Away Voices is Spotify audiobooks. And so now together, those are the ways that folks can also produce and have their own books produced and made into audiobooks through Spotify/Find Away Voices.
That's cool. That's good information. Yeah.
Yeah,
I knew that I knew I'd heard something, just wasn't exactly sure what I had heard. So tell us what it was that you were like, I need to get my voice out there. I need to express with my voice. I need to do this thing. Was there like a thing that drew you to that, or was it just something more natural?
That's a good question. So what drew me to this as a career, like the whole just as a cool thing to do with your voice, was I was a kid. I was like 8 to 12 years old, in that range, reading. I was a big reader, and I got busy because you get busy when you're 8 years old. I don't know, but I was busy. And so I started to get into little cassette audiobooks, and I would have the little cassettes. I have them still. I love them because I'm that old. But I would, listen to my audiobooks on cassette, and my favorite ones were solo. I could not stand multicasts then. My brain was like, no, but a solo narrator narrating. They were fantasy, narrating 20 plus, 30 plus, 100 characters in a single book. And this one person being able to change their voice and do these vocal gymnastics. And it was just really cool. So that is what made me think it was awesome. And then my family growing up would do competitive horseback riding. I'd never really got into it. I don't do that. But whenever they would go to the horse competitions, the horse shows, I would always go to the announcer's box and be like, so can I use the mic? I want to be on the mic. can I announce the next one who's up? And I'm like really shy as a kid. So it was really awkward for me to be the one that wanted to be, but I'm like, this is the mic. This is just my voice. Nobody has to look at me. I had so much fun doing that when I was a kid. And I think that's when I realized I love it. It was fun. I tried to make like get a blank cassette and like record myself doing like favorite chapters in books. But then I didn't go with that as like a career, but I loved it then. So that's kind of where I was like, this is so cool. Yeah.
That's so funny that that was something that you just like naturally were drawn to passionately as a kid. And then I'm
Mhm.
sure life probably stacked on you and you're like, oh, I can't probably make a career out of that. Let's, or that just wasn't even something that went into your mind because that's not a typical career that, is
Yeah.
very well known. And then you're like, wait a minute, I had this passion. Why did I let it go?
Yeah.
When did that little click happen for you? And what was it that you're like, maybe was it I'm tired of what I'm doing on my
Mhm.
day job in real life? And so like what was it that was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a go.
Yeah, so I've been told it was maybe for the wrong reasons. It worked for me. The timing worked for me, but like what I do, being an audiobook narrator, I didn't realize this, but being a narrator is being an actor. I didn't realize they were the same thing. A voice actor, you got voice acting, and then you've got all the things that voice actors do. And there's so many different things underneath there that they do, right? And one of those is being a audiobook narrator, or like doing commercials. And there's all these different ways that you can be a voice actor. But like I went the audiobook narrator route, not realizing that it's being an actor. So when I got into it, the reason was I have two kids. I'm a single mom, and one of my youngest kid decided that she wanted to start pursuing a sport. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, sure. But she's like, no, I want to pursue it seriously, like her older sister had been for several years. I was like, okay, sure, we'll sign you up for a tryout. We'll see what happens. You'll get on like the lowest base level team because it's your first year trying out. Psh. Yeah, no, this kid goes and makes like the national qualifying level team for that sport, and I'm just like, okay, well, I can't say no, but like I wasn't expecting two kids in national qualifying level travel team
That is,
sports at the same
Yeah.
yes.
time. And so that was
And they don't travel
literally
to the same places for crying out loud.
they don't travel because the age difference. They don't even travel
Up
to
with
the same
that.
places.
So
Last
rude.
Yeah.
they were 6 hours apart. There was one weekend, one tournament where they were 6 hours apart from each other. Thank goodness I have good friends. Just yeah, so that happened literally October, November of last year was tryouts, and that's when we found out. And November 6th was my first ever audition. So it was literally, I went into acting for money. And when I tell coaches this, I've had a coach look at me and be like, wait, that's not what actors don't usually, they don't usually make money right off the bat. I'm like, I get it. It worked. I needed something that worked with my schedule. I had a friend who's been doing this for several years, and I've known her for like a couple decades. She's a really close friend, and I followed her journey of becoming a narrator, and she's doing really, really well. And I'm like, I used to always want to do that. That's so cool that you do this. And she's like, you could totally do it. And I was like, maybe. And I invested in a microphone and everything, but then I put it away because I didn't have the motivation. And then both my kids decided to spend mama's money, and then I had motivation. So
So
yeah.
it's
Hey,
funny. Do you think that there's a correlation to like when we are so stretched thin and we've got jobs, we're moms, we've got all these responsibilities, and we're so stretched thin, but then we need more money? I feel like like our minds naturally like, what is something I enjoy doing that I can make money off of? Because everything else in my life, I'm doing it because I have to do it. If I'm gonna
Mhm.
stretch even further beyond what I'm already capable of doing, what if I find a way to make money doing something I like?
I
So do
better
you want to
fucking
know the
love it.
weirdest thing with that? It makes me feel guilty. It makes me feel guilty because I'm sitting here loving what I do, reading for fun again, and getting paid to do something I've done. I have over 600, 700 books. I stopped counting at 500, but I have several physical books. I love books, but like I spend I would have been spending my free time on a second job anyway. But now I'm spending my free time doing something I love, and it feels I feel guilty because it's like it's time away from my kids and I'm loving it. So it doesn't really feel like it's helping them, but at the end of the, you know what I mean? Like it is. It's
Yeah.
weird.
It
Yeah.
it's
But what
it's
a
funny where we
blessing.
blame ourselves for stuff, right? Like what is the logic behind it is baseless. There's no baseless logic, but the emotions that it pulls up, it's like why am I
How
doing this to
Yep.
myself?
How dare I enjoy myself? How dare I have fun while making money, while helping my kids, while putting my how dare I pursue a passion and manage priorities at the same time?
I think that that could be a little bit of self-deprecating, and single moms especially, but even married moms struggle with that. It's a little bit of self-deprecation, but also like a little bit of a punishment for ever knows that you know we should not enjoy like our time, or doing things like you know what I'm saying? Like it's so hard for moms, especially, to just want to take a bath uh, without interruption. Like we feel guilty for that, and it's like, "Bitch, no, you got to have some time." So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious to where that comes from because, like, I'm thinking about it and, like, I can't think of anyone who's directly shamed me or directly said anything. And I'm trying to think of, like, even subtle cues of stuff. And I'm even having a hard time with that, but it's still there and it's happening to so many of us. It's like, there's got to be a place that this is coming from.
Yeah. I don't even know. I mean, at the end of the day, you're a mom. That should be your priority if you're not spending time with them. So I got around that a little bit. The whole, if I'm not spending time with them, then the whole you must be a bad mom. Then that feeling that comes together, right? If you've got free time, it's the weekend, your kids could be spending time with you, but instead you're doing this other thing. Okay, however, the way I got around that mentally and was able to continue pushing through and pushing forward was this was my own way. Everybody has their own different way. But for me, I only auditioned for and took work that paid me outright. I wasn't taking work for royalties. I was like, if I'm going to be spending hours away from my kids, the only way I can deal with the guilt is by saying, but I look at this check. Look at this check. Okay, I can't if I have royalties, I'm sure that's great for my portfolio and great for getting my name out there and everything else, but like for me to not feel guilty, I needed a check personally. So I only auditioned for roles that paid outright. Eventually I did start to do a couple more royalties here and there, which I'm really excited about those ones, but because I do, I'm able to be like, okay, I got some checks, so I'm good. I'm good. But at first that was the way I kind of got around that.
Yeah. The way that I did it, I will probably piss a lot of moms off because I just realized that if my cup is empty, I can't fill their cups. So I placed myself above them on the priority list. And it's not saying that I'm above them in any sort of, health, wealth, anything like that. Like their health, all their mental well-being is still important. But if I don't focus on myself and I don't take care of myself, I can't put stuff into their cups. I can't help them. And so, but it still get going to that shift, the guilt and the worrying about what everyone's going to say when I say that out loud to people, like it's all just very heavy, but
Yeah.
the results make it to where I don't care. Like I'm so present for my kids and I'm so there for them in so much things. And so if people want to shame me for saying that I put myself above my kids, meaning, I make sure I fill my own cup first, it's fine. It'll be fine.
I love that for your guys' generation. Like for me, I don't think I ever learned that until, gosh, my kids were probably grown. And then I still had mom guilt. Sometimes I
Mhm.
still have mom guilt. I'm in my 50s and I still have mom guilt, for things. And so um I love that that's like a progression of, there is a little, at least a little bit of evolution in that thought process, because
Mhm.
it's not healthy.
No.
Well, it can be healthy the other way too, or unhealthy the other way too. I think there's just an awareness of like knowing where the line is, where everything is balanced. So, like we've talked about in the past, Kathy, things can pendulum swing in the other direction, and it's like, wait a minute, maybe this wasn't what we were going for.
And it looks
Right.
different for everybody, every mom, every
Yeah.
family, kids have different needs depending on what their, cultural upbringing might have been, or it just differs. And even between kids, I got one kid who's like, "Mom, leave me, leave me be. I'm good. Why are you here right now?" And the other one's
What
like,
do you
"Can you
want?
sit with me and cuddle me?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, got it." Like, they're just different needs.
Yeah.
It's so
So
true.
true. Yeah. I think awareness is ultimately our biggest key with that. Oh my goodness. So was that was that, I know kind of a little bit about, your childhood and stuff like that you've talked to us about, but like, was that something that you experienced as a kid? Were your parents very, present? Were they very, worried? Did you sense your mom's guilt of like, if she stepped away, she had mom guilt or anything like that? Was that anything you experienced?
Not at all. Not at
No.
all. So growing up, I am obviously, well, I'm purple right now, but I'm black, right? So I'm adopted. My whole family is white, except for my sister, who's also adopted. But, for the most part, we were raised, in a white family, in a white home. And what's more than that is we were raised in a town of 500 people. Like it's tiny, and not in a town of 500 people. We were like a good few miles outside of town. And so I think at around fifth or sixth grade, because of as I came to find out as an adult, discrimination issues, I became homeschooled on fifth or sixth grade, and so I was constantly around my family. Like I did school at home. My friends were at home. Like I had the animals, and so like that. I don't think there was a lot of guilt with not having present parents because they also owned their own business, and so they worked in their home. And even as a child, I was working in the home, how you do, like when you're a kid, you might man things, answer phones, whatever. And so that is kind of how it was. They were always around. Yeah.
It's awesome.
I
Um,
love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a unique childhood. And
Yeah.
and unique in one aspect, but also like kids get bullied for so much stuff. Was that something that you were aware of? Like they kept it from you, they protected you
I
from
had no
everything and the
idea. I literally, this is the thing. So the funny thing, the first time I realized this as an adult, because I'd look back and remember situations and be like, oh, I would always be like, there's so and so's kids. I would hear that, like maybe walking in the grocery store or walking somewhere in the tiny little town. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, because my parents are famous. They own the business at the top of the hill. Everybody knows who my parents are. I literally thought it was because they owned a business at the top of the hill, right outside of town. And everybody knew when they looked at that top of that hill, that's where those famous people live. In reality, I'm black. Oh, that's why how they know who my parents are. It didn't click until I was like in my 20s.
it's
So I
so
had no
awesome.
idea. Yeah.
Oh
What
my
an
gosh.
amazing thing, though, that they shielded you from that and just did what was necessary
Mhm.
to protect you from that. And ladies and gentlemen, this is an excellent example of homeschooling does not have to be the weird, kids that grow
Really.
up and are, like Carmen's an
Gosh,
amazing person. I
gosh,
can vote for
sure.
her, so.
It doesn't have to be. No, no, no. So I like when COVID stuff happened, can we say that when the pandemic stuff happened? Dude, I was like, yes, my kids get to experience distance learning because while I prefer in school a lot of times because I had like zero friends, like socially awkward into my 30s, I wonder why. But like I like the fact that my kids have that school experience, but I really wanted them to be able to have that distance learning experience because that's what I had from fifth, sixth grade to, graduating high school. And I loved it. You get to set your own pace. You get to pick a lot of what you do. I mean, you could be done with your school day at 11 a.m. if you're fast. Like it was awesome. And I liked it. Kind of sucks, obviously. The pandemic was not fun, but I do appreciate the opportunity for my children to experience what I experienced as a kid with regards to distance learning. So,
Now,
That's a great take on that too.
yeah, yeah. We're actually looking into that ourselves with our kiddos because this today in this world, kids are so mean to each other, and I mean, there's no protecting them from it. If they are around kids whatsoever, they just they just have to test all of the boundaries, right? And they have to test what they can say to other kids and how far they can take it. And it's hard having sensitive children in this world.
yes, it is. And raising sensitive children because you don't want to harden them. You want them to stay sensitive.
Yeah, yeah, getting
Yeah,
them
That's the
through
thing.
the battlefield.
I think the pandemic did the silver lining. I always try to look at the silver lining in things, and I think that that was one of the silver linings. But I think also that it forced parents to parent. It forced parents to you deal with your kid. Let's see how that goes for you.
Yeah.
Did you
And
teach, Kathy? Teacher.
Listen, I have 3 kids, you know that. I am very aware of how my children, I mean,
Yeah.
they're kids. But also parents need to parent, and you know, there's responsibility in that. And it was just so funny because at the company that I was working out, we had video calls, everything was on video at that point. And our VP, I mean, kids coming in to she's out on her porch or whatever. Her kids come out asking questions. She has to stop town hall or whatever, deal with her kids. The dog is coming through, clipped ears, and so it was. I think that it brought a lot of humanity back to those worlds.
Yeah.
We've talked to quite a few people who COVID has affected them, and like they've started writing, they've started narrating, they started doing the things that they wanted to do because of COVID, and that was like their opportunity to do that. So I think there was a lot of good that came out of it too. There was a lot of bad, but there is, like Kathy said, the silver lining. I have a question for you, Carmen. You mentioned, that you didn't have a lot of friends. You were kind of very isolated. Was that where you, as a child being homeschooled, was that kind of the catalyst to you falling in love with books and these other worlds?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I did not want to learn how to read. I know I fought my parents so hard on learning how to read. I remember Hooked on Phonics. Like I remember it like a really bad dream. Like I remember like being like just being told you will sit there until you get through that page and just being like, I just remember those pages. But eventually I did figure out how to read. And then my most common punishment growing up often was just okay, you don't get to read. Your books are gonna be taken away. Your books are gonna be taken away. I was like, but or my flashlights were taken away so I couldn't read at night under the covers. Like those were the biggest punishments because as soon as I could start reading, it was everything. Because we lived in such a rural area, we were like 2 hours from the closest Walmart. Every time we would go into town, 2 hours away, the bigger town, the bookstore person there knew me by name. And whenever I walked in, they'd be like, oh, we've got it in, because I would special order the next in the series, the next Harry Potter was special ordered for me. Diana Wynne Jones, who wrote Howl's Moving Castle, was special ordered for me ahead of time. Like as soon as these authors came out with new books, they'd be like, "Oh, we got it in." So every like once a month, we go into town. I'd go to the bookstore. They'd know me by name and they'd give me my books, and that's where my collecting of books started. My allowance was always on
That's
books.
amazing.
So yeah, I love it. It was because I didn't get to experience diversity. I was homeschooled. Like I didn't get to hear other accents other than what my parents watched on TV. I didn't get to have a lot of close friends or experience other points of view and we didn't watch any TV other than what was like, sanctioned by the family. And so I got to experience all of that in books, and it was a lot of fantasy.
Fantasy. My heart is in fantasy so much. And I love the saying that, a non-reader lives one life. A reader lives thousands of lives. And it's so true because I feel like I have experienced so much more of the world through reading these characters and what they've gone through and the situations they've been put through. And it also broadens my oh, okay, this situation, even though it's not a fantasy world, I'm dealing with a crisis, I'm dealing with a situation. I also know how other people would deal with it in an extreme manner. And I can actually rationalize more having that knowledge of how would I deal with this? How do I want to deal with this?
And then, like, just imagine you're a teenager and you're going through typical teenage things. You're going through puberty, you're going through being interested in random crap, but you don't really have anybody to talk to. But then you're reading a book and it's like, oh my God, I'm normal. Okay, well, if somebody wrote this, then I can't be that weird because somebody else thought it because it's on page, right? So it did help to not make me feel personally alone or weird. It gave me that, like, it literally was a very safe place for me to kind of just be in when I felt a little other, with my own family and in my
Carmen,
community.
what was did you have a like a like one book that was really monumental, like had a monumental influence on you, or a series or whatever?
Yeah, it has to be Brian Jakes. Yeah, he was my, because I have, if I don't have every book, I'm going to be very upset. I honestly haven't checked, but I remember every time that there was a new book I was getting that, or I was like, did you get this newest one out? But it was Brian Jakes. He wrote the Redwall series. He wrote
Yep.
Castaways of the Flying Dutchman. He wrote several books, and he also was a radio personality, a radio show host in the UK, and he had this amazing voice, and he narrated his own books. It was everything in one, and his worlds had animals that each had their own dialect. Oh, it was so cool. And but
My son loved that book. Redwall,
it's
loved
beautiful
it.
because they all come together. It's diverse. You've got all these different cultures and practices and traditions that come together in one book, but they're all completely foreign to you. Because I mean, to me, I don't know a badger from a hare's traditions, but it was just really fun. I liked it. Yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna
that
have to.
made a lot. Yeah.
I surprisingly I don't know that book, so that sounds exactly
You
like something my
don't?
daughter would love.
Oh my gosh,
There's a
I'm
ton
shocked right now.
of Redwall series books. Yeah, and his voice is.
Yes.
Yep, wrote it down.
Gosh,
I think that's it. Yeah. Did you
That's awesome.
did you ever have the desire to write, or to like, was that ever something, or did you just like consuming? Because I know that writing also can be very exhausting. It can be very like thinking of stuff, or it can be very freeing. But was that ever something that you were like interested in?
I did write. I wrote a lot. I was really into writing. As I got into my teenage years, I turned away from short stories and more towards poetry. But I had this problem. I love journals and books with paper, books that have paper, duh. Anyways, I like that, right? And so I would get pretty journals and I would use each one for a different feeling I had, but I can't find a single book from my childhood that I collected that I could write in that doesn't have ripped out pages. Can't find a single one. I couldn't own what I put on the page very well. It didn't feel right. I kept most of the poetry I still have. One day I may read it because I do love spoken word poetry. I think it's a lot of fun. And one day I might get up the nerve. I do this narration thing. I live narrate, and people are like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Why can't you get up on stage?" It's different. There are people. There are people.
You should start with your TikTok lives. You should start narrating your stuff like that on your TikTok lives. That would be, I would come and watch that, because like we know Summer England, she started reading her diaries live on her thing because people were interested in like her romance love story on how she met her husband, and it was pretty fantastic.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day. It's scary. It's so scary. Like if I did it, I'd have to be like, "Oh yes, then there's this anonymous submission that somebody sent to me. I wonder who."
You did that. You did the book con. Where were you, Sinners and Stardust?
I was at Sinful Signings.
That's what it was. Yeah. And what, you were like were you a moderator? What were you doing?
No, they had a panel of about 12 to 14 narrators where we all spoke. Okay, but that's different. That's
That is
different.
not different, ma'am. There were people there.
There were, and you know what happened right beforehand? I almost cried because I had a friend, dear sweet Vin, is a narrator. We love her. She came up to me and held my hands right before because she knew I was nervous. And I'm like, "Don't hold my hands right now. You're gonna make me cry." Then I get up there and I act like everything's fine. Then it took me a good 2 hours to like chill out afterwards. Oh, it's just so nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It's hard.
But you did it. But you did it.
People say it seems like I'm fine. I'm not. Inside, it's just all crazy. It doesn't always show.
I think that is very like, I don't think we necessarily get that scaredness after gone. We mask it longer, maybe. Like, so it's no longer that we, have 2 hours after that we're just panicking. It's like, okay, we just we don't really show it anymore. We just mask it until it seems like it's not there.
Yeah.
No, there's so many, and there's so many new things, right? Like we think, okay, the world's getting to where they are more accepting of stuff. They understand that, being weird is the new cool thing, and we feel like it's just getting better to where we can be ourselves more. But then new things come up, and it's like, oh, now I can't talk about this because everyone will get mad at me, or if I have an opinion, or if I rate a book at a 2-star, everyone's gonna unfollow me, and so it's so difficult to think about all of the outside influences that could impact the way that you present yourself, the things that you say, the vulnerability that you take on whenever you are saying things out to the void.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I do worry because a lot of times when I go up in front of people as a narrator in that space or voice actor, I get asked questions and I worry about my answers primarily because of the way I was raised and the culture. Because that was I'm an age. I am of an age. Okay, it's been several years since I was a kid. However, your culture, your foundation really does shape the way you view the world. And no matter what you do to change that, it still is not the what you fall back on. You have to really change what you fall back on to learn new diversity, new culture, new rights and wrongs, because it might be different from how you were raised. And so I really have to be careful sometimes with answering questions because I need to make sure, okay, wait a second, how will this be accepted? How will these words be accepted? Because where I'm from, I'm sure it'll be accepted fine. That's how I was taught. But I don't, you just have to be careful.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It
Yeah.
is. It is so difficult. And getting to the point to where like I will have I'll ask questions to understand better, but the way that I'm asking them because
Yeah.
I'm not versed in having these deep conversations. I don't get to do it all the time. The way that I ask them it can sound so like not how I'm meaning it to sound. So it's just like I want to know more. I want to understand,
Yeah.
but I sound so horrible the way I'm asking this.
Yep. Yep. I remember there was just recently I told somebody, oh God, it came off so bad. I know it did, but I meant it in a way that was so kind and polite. But at the end of the day, intentions are always, always, always going to reflect the perception. Like they're gonna be whatever your intention was, it's that person's perception of what you said that actually matters. Right.
Yep.
And so it's just you gotta be careful, but hopefully through being
Uh-oh. Can you hear her, Kathy?
No.
She just said something amazing.
I know, right? And it's right there on the tip of her tongue. You can see it, like right there. Level everybody with Carmen's freaking wisdom.
Oh, man. That's fantastic. That is perfect timing.
That's right.
Hey, sorry about that, guys.
No, we were
Please.
laughing because like it paused right when you were about to just drop the bomb of like your wisdom.
Yeah,
All
I
my
was like, it's
wisdom.
literally on the tip of her tongue and it's about ready to come out.
Sorry,
Almost.
guys, and I have no idea what I was saying, so it's gone now. I
Oh,
don't read wisdom.
We knew that's
yeah.
what would happen.
Yeah, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. That was
No,
like
gone. Completely gone.
Yeah,
it's all
Oh well.
completely.
good. It's all good.
Oh well.
I don't want to spend too much time trying to think back on that, but
It'll come to us eventually. If it's important, it'll come back.
right, right,
Right?
exactly.
Exactly.
So did you have a question, Kathy?
No, I was just gonna ask like if you could like how did you how did your like the whole progression, because like you started out with your love for the books and then did you go into like a job that was just like whatever and like how did that pendulum swing back for you through your life? I mean, other than like the mom, that change where as a single mom, you got to do what you got to do to get money so your kids can play sports because I know that's super expensive. But like there had to have been like a pendulum swing because most people don't go from like not really thinking about books or whatever, you know what I'm saying,
Mm.
to get to that point. Was there stuff that you were dealing with that you were turning to books to kind of help, you know what I'm saying?
I do. So I never really took a my longest break from books was probably when was my longest break from books? Probably when I started having kids was when I got away from reading as much. Um, yeah, probably. I mean, I still read, but I read books with them and for them and stuff.
Yeah.
No, my goal when I was getting to be an adult and figure out what am I going to do with my life, I did look into radio. I thought that would be fun, but everything seemed super unachievable because I was 16 when I graduated high school and I was a baby. I was from such a small town. I was super freaking naive. And I'm like, I was naive, but I think a little bit smart, at least in terms of like knowing who I was. And I'm like, I should not go to college right now. I should not go wild and go because I didn't have didn't have a point, a purpose, a vision. I didn't have a drive to do anything specifically. And so my choice at that point was to look into the military, which I did do for a time. And that was just to give me a little bit more structure. I was still able to enjoy books throughout that time. I was still able to explore my love of reading, but I didn't really explore passions with regards to careers because, that was doing it for me. And then I started to have my kids, and I really enjoyed reading to them and trying to get them to enjoy my same books, which to this day they don't read my books. And I'm like, I've freaking collected books since I was y'all's age, and you won't. I've tried so many times. Do you guys remember the Royal Diaries or the Dear Diaries, the Dear America
Yes.
series?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
my girl
have an
loved that.
entire
Well, no, my oldest daughter loved that series. She loved that. All the historical whatever, loved them. Loved them.
Animorphs,
Yeah.
maybe Twitches, maybe. Yeah. I
Spiderwick Chronicles.
have shelves upon shelves, and they won't read them. And I'm like, okay, let's go pick a book. Okay, are we going to the library? The library's in the basement. Okay, there's a wall full of books. Read my books. But no, they introduced me. I read the Warrior Cat series. Or was
Oh,
it the
really?
Wings
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. My
or the
son
Wings
liked
of
that.
Fire series with them. They've introduced
What
me to
was
new
that?
books. The Wings of
What was
Fire
that?
series.
I
Oh
don't even-
yes, my daughter loves the
Dragons.
Wings of Fire. Yeah.
Dragons, so many
Yep.
dragons.
Yeah. I know. I like from the fantasy books that I read growing up, I was like, wait a minute. There's a whole you're just reading it from the dragon's perspective. Are you kidding me? What?
Yeah. So I've always loved books. It's kind of, floated in and out of my life no matter what I'm doing. I got more into writing when I went through like times here and there where you're an adult. You grow up even as an adult. And so that's when I would turn more to writing than reading. But yeah, I've just kind of always been into that. It was really having that friend that I made while in the military who's a narrator now who really helped me to discover this side of things. Yeah.
See, there it is. There's the push. There's the like, I can do it
That's
because I
it.
know people who do it.
She made it seem so much more achievable. Like I was like, wait, if you can, and you're saying I could, and you know me, maybe I could. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
find, because I did this when I was reading books to my kids, and I'm not a narrator, but like I would do like the different voices, like I would put different voices to different characters when I was reading the books. Did you do that?
Yeah. I've taught my children to be very honest. I have taught my kids have gotten in trouble before for telling teachers no, which is fine. That's fine. So this is the thing. They'll get like my oldest got a piece of work, a piece of paper, whatever to do in class when she was like in second grade. And the teacher gave me a call at the end of the day and is like, hey, your child said that she did not want to complete her work. Okay. And then what? Well, she completed her work. Okay. And how was it? Well, she got a good grade. Okay, what's the problem? Well, the way
The
she
point
said
of
I don't
this-
want to do it was not very respectful. I'm like, but she spoke up and then she did it. Like, I'm like, I teach them to be honest and say things because I don't want them to hold that in as long as they're respectful. As long as you're respectful with it. So this is what I get from my kids. So recently I've had them listen to some things that I do. The poor children, they have to listen to whatever. So I'll play things that I'm narrating. And my youngest will say, Mom, I really liked when you put on voices when you would read to me when I was younger. And I liked when you would make up stories as I was go to bed. And I remember some of the stories you would make up and they would be so wonderful and great. She's like, I like that voice. I don't know what you're doing here. She's like, Mom, this is a lot more sharp. This is sharp. When you read to me, when you were reading me bedtime stories and making up stories, it was so much more gentle. This is sharp. I appreciate
Thanks
your
for the
feedback.
feedback.
I did always put on voices, but apparently my voice was much more soft and gentle and not as sharp.
It was nice.
Yeah,
and
you
cozy.
also knew that you were talking to your kids, and it was you got to be more whimsical and more.
Oh, I love them. They
These are
both
great.
give me great critiques. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's your manager right there. That's your agent.
Do better.
I just want to commend you on that, allowing your kids to speak up and have a voice. There's a hard balance with that, like letting them speak up and say stuff, but also teaching them how to do it respectfully and not just pushing them into the rebellion stage a little early.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
No, I think we're good. I think we're good. I think we did okay so far. So far, so good. And I'd much rather have. I think it's easier personally. I think it's easier to pull back than to push, right? And so if they've gone a little far, I think we can reel it in a bit. But if you have to continuously push to speak up for yourself, it might not come as easy, especially as you get older and set in your ways. So I'm okay
Yep.
with it.
Yep. 100%. I agree. I agree. I'm on the same train with you though. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what did I do? My kids are just, they're brutal sometimes.
Yeah. And then they're so honest. It's like, shoot, you're right. Darn it.
Get out of here with your common sense and honesty. What's up with that?
Just
Darn it.
own it. It's like, where'd you get your smarts from? You got your smarts from your mama. Like,
Let's just go with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So with raising your kids and stuff like that, you went through a period of, your divorce and that I know was it a huge transition, or was it, I've kind of been doing this single parenting thing for a while anyways, so
Oh gosh, it was a pretty massive transition. I learned a lot about my abilities. Now, my this is not like this is no secret, but I know this is again the mom guilt coming in. But like, I never wanted kids. Like, I was never the kid who had the baby doll. I was the kid that took the heads off the baby dolls. I, I was never the kid that learned how to swaddle and pretended to be mommy. And I just never, ever, ever, ever. I was going to be the crazy wild aunt. I was going to be Miss Frizzle in a house at the top of a hill with a crooked chimney. Like, I wanted to be just just eccentric and weird and have all the library books and the deep window seat for my nieces and nephews to come hang out in with books. Like, that was me. And then suddenly, you things change. You meet a man and things change. So yeah, that happened, and I loved it, and I was like, "What the hell was I even? How did I never? I love being mom. It's everything, but again, nothing I ever thought I wanted. Then it's absolutely everything, and now suddenly I'm doing this alone. Something I never
your
thought I ever
identity
even
shift must have been like, what's going on?
what is happening? Yeah, and the fact that I think because I didn't have that ingrained in me that I will always be a mother from the time I knew what being a mom was, I just always knew I would be one. That's not how it was for me. So when it was, okay, now you are not only a mother, but you're doing it on your own, it was, I don't think I had in me the feeling of, oh yeah, I can totally do this. I know what that takes. But it came. It definitely came, and it fit. It worked well. My kids are they're freaking amazing. They've taught me a lot about myself. They've taught me a lot about what I'm capable of doing, and a lot about what you said, Randie, which was just you need to sometimes prioritize yourself. Sometimes putting yourself first is making sure your kids are okay. If you are taken care of, they are taken care of, and they've really helped me to learn that. And they're not getting any younger, which means eventually, guess what? I'm not going to matter as much to them, which means I need to find other things that matter to me too.
Yeah. I think that
So,
that is one of the biggest identity crisis for a lot of women is when your kids are grown and they'll still need you, but it's so much less and it becomes your identity walks out the door when they, you know what I mean? Like that's everything that you were for the past however long.
mm,
And if you don't have something to fall back on, it can shatter a lot of what you've built your foundational identity on. And that's hard and scary. And I don't wish that on anyone. But also, I understand the women who just want to be a mom. I understand that that's like everything to them. Like worry about your mental health when that time comes. Consider
mhm,
it, prioritize it, make
yeah.
sure you safeguard yourself because that's going to be a huge shift that it could hurt a lot.
My kids
I
have made it
think
very clear that they're really happy that I found something that brings me so much joy and friends, and they're really sweet about it.
Right? They see that stuff. They see, and then you are modeling to them, hey, it's okay to prioritize yourself. It's okay to do things that is just for you. And so when they grow up, they have that modeled for them. We talk a lot about on this show about not having stuff modeled for them. You are doing that. Your kids are so freaking lucky because they get to see you doing that in a healthy way.
Now I have to let them see me date. That's
ugh,
the worst thing ever.
I'm
For
kidding.
the longest time, I was like, "This is completely separate. They don't need to know anything about anything." But now I'm like, "Shoot, they're both about to be teenagers. I have to model this shit. Darn it, I'm bad at it."
Yeah. But you know what? The way that you go through it and, the bad shit happens and comes and you're like, "Okay, that sucked. I'm gonna have all the emotions. I'm gonna feel this, but I'm okay and I can keep" there that's still modeling to them
Yeah.
amazing things that they can't get anywhere else. No book's gonna show them that like you will.
Mm.
Yeah. I think too is because I went through all that. Single mom, pretty much a single mom even when I was married, but single mom definitely they were in their early, like the tweens and early teens. So I was a single mom of three with teenagers essentially. And it was daunting. And I hadn't that's all I knew. You know what I'm saying? And I was one of those moms that I like poured everything into my family, like everything. So here I am, newly single. I'm trying to figure out who am I? And I have to take care of three kids and make sure that they're, like healthy and doing, okay and dealing with all of it. And so yeah, that is a hard thing to do. But I think that, and I made mistakes.
Yeah.
I made some huge fucking mistakes, honestly, that really did affect them later in life. But we're human. We
Yeah.
make mistakes, own it, apologize, and enjoy
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah. But like I will say, one of the coolest things that I've just recently experienced with narration is um I didn't know that this was happening until I mean it kind of was happening, but it didn't click what was happening. I go on live to narrate. I've been doing that on lives, streaming, on different applications. Wow, I'm old apps. Um, wow. And so when I would do that, people would come and watch and be like, oh, that's interesting. What is that person doing? Whatever. Then I had one person reach out and be like, "Hey, can you talk to me about what it's like to be a voice actor, to be a narrator?" Sure, yeah, I'll tell you what my experience has been like. So we have an hour-long phone conversation, and then a week or two later it happens again, and then a week or two later it happens again until this week I had somebody reach out to me who I believe they're in their 40s or 50s, has had, several different careers and wants to look into doing this and said, "Hey, I've been watching you for a little while. You've inspired me and encouraged me that this is something that's approachable and something I can do. And here are my first ever samples up so that I can get hired to do audiobooks." And then she asked me if I could mentor her. And I'm like, I'm too new to mentor people, but I'll listen to your samples. But it was so cool. I was like,
That
oh, so
But
it's
oh
like,
my gosh, what a way to so like that is just, we have these paths in front of us and we're like, I'm going down a path that I think is the right thing for me. And then
mm,
you have this literally path just come to you. It's like, hey, this is an option for you. Like that is the coolest thing ever. And I love when life does that.
I was so pleased. And then I listened to her samples, and one of her samples was my first ever sample like a year ago. And I'm like, look at us, we're twins. That's so cool. But it's I love that because this person might have found like what my friend did for me like along like 2 years ago when she made it seem like it's something I could possibly do. I was so glad that I did that for somebody. Like I don't think I'm that great at all, but even like that's the thing is it's just it makes it feel like there's a door. Like I showed somebody a door. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. Yep. You
It's
gave them that
pretty
path.
neat. Yeah, and being in that older generation to have like something so that's how I have felt with the narration, the management, the production management of the audiobooks. Just kind of like found me, and it has given me so much joy to do this. Like I have not and I've done a lot of jobs and I've never enjoyed something like I do this. And come to find out I'm pretty good at it. So
Yeah.
I completely understand that. And that's so cool that you were that, that little candle in the dark that showed somebody, like, hey, this is cool, this is fun, and you can do it.
Mhm.
I can't wait. Carmen, I am so here for the moment where you're like, you shift your identity a little bit more and you're like, I can be that model, that mentor to people. And I can't wait to watch that process because when you get to that identity shift where you're like, yes, I'm a mentor to new baby authors or narrators, like
Mhm.
that's gonna be so fun to watch if you ever come to that.
It'll take some time. It'll take some time. I need a little bit more seasoning. Let's give me some more seasoning. Give me some more time. I want to be able to speak with wisdom and some form of authority, which I don't really have all that much yet. But
Here's a piece that I want to give you on that. So I've heard in the past that mentors are only either a step or two or so higher than you. Like if you become a couple steps higher than someone, you then can become a mentor because no one was there for you when you made those steps to where you are now. You could be there for someone to get to the steps where you are, even if it's just a couple steps higher. That's still being there for someone who potentially could go through it alone, and you're providing that for them.
well,
I'm
we'll
excited for
see.
you.
One day.
I love the presence that you have on TikTok and on social media, and it's so much fun to watch you. Like I love when, oh, Carmen's on, because I have it, like tell me when you're on. And so so I'll like try to pop in and just because it's just so fun to listen to you, like cuss out your microphone and that going on. It gives me joy, Carmen. It's just fun to
It is
watch this
so much
real
fun.
person. Yeah.
And you're
I
so
love it.
real. And I think that has a lot to do with we kind of going back to the homeschooling, kind of going back to the environment. Your parents created this environment for you to just authentically be yourself with no, you didn't have any sorries, this is how I am. You were just authentically you. And I think that that shows in your adult. Like even though you have your weird little quirky things, that makes me connect to you so much more. It's like, I love that she is, covering her face when she laughs, or she, you have your safety pillow, or, all these,
You notice that?
we all have our safety things. You're good.
Yep.
I have this is my safety. As soon as I feel like I've done something or said something dumb, I'm like, okay, let's take a drink and just think about what you said for a minute.
Got it.
We
Take a beat.
we do that often. We're like, oh, I'm about ready to interrupt her. Take a drink.
It just makes you so much more connectable.
Yeah, I think that one thing that this has revealed to me and my therapist is the fact that like I am allowed to be more me. I remember growing up, like I said, like it wasn't the same. I couldn't relate to a lot of people because there weren't a lot of people around. It wasn't really diverse. And if I had some idea or some thought, I didn't really have a lot of people around to bounce that idea off of that weren't my parents, which is from a completely different generation, or my sister, who, in my opinion, at that time was the most uncool person that ever existed. I love her now, but my goodness, she's an older sister. Okay, I'm allowed to not like her. No, she's awesome now. But like, then I found that in books, but like I still wasn't able to fully express out loud those things, right? And so in this little booth, when I'm going through right now, I have the 2 books in front of me that I'm working on, and holy crap, I'm not kidding you, they have been brought up in therapy multiple times because I get to emote in a way that's not acceptable to general people out and about. Like, you're not going to go walking around and scream at somebody, right? You're not going to go walking around and cry at somebody unless you're actually in that state and something calls for it, right? In this book, it calls for it. And so as an actor in this booth, all of that, anything that might have been repressed or anything that I might have not been able to show, the child Carmen gets to have that moment with these characters. And I feel like as a listener, when I was growing up and I got to hear these audiobooks and these characters go through these traumatic, wonderful, joyous, terrible things, I got to feel and through their voice, even if I didn't feel completely safe doing that myself at that time. So now here I am, baby Carmen's coming out, and I get to cry, I get to scream, I get to do all those things, and it's safe and it's okay because it's here. I love it. I love this booth so much. I love it. It's so much fun.
That is amazing. Is there a trope or a genre, but also like a trope that you are like, nope, that's a hard no for me?
Oh yeah. I'm sure that there's more that I just haven't discovered yet. But my first book that I got hired to narrate was How to Overcome Childhood Trauma. So while my family is wonderful and beautiful and did all the wonderful, beautiful things, I have some trauma. And so I didn't realize how very much trauma I had until I got that book. Holy crap. And now I know. Uh, on page things having to do with childhood trauma, like on page explicit descriptions, I need to screen it before I will accept a contract to do that book. I've had a few authors this has been in a few authors books that I'm contracted to work with, and they've all been very accepting and understanding of, okay, here's the scene, here's where this is. But that's my one. That was a hard. My therapist is such a good guy, man. He's been there with me through the whole time. But yeah, that was a rough book. That was the one that was the most difficult, and that is my one that I've now identified as I need to screen this before I can take it. I'm sure there's others, but that's the biggest one. Yeah.
So childhood trauma, as in like assault, or I'm just like, because there's all
Yeah.
kinds
So
of
we're
trauma.
talking any type of, we're talking if it's abuse of any type to a child, is including emotional. I really need to see what's on the page uh before I do it, because there's only so much I can do without, because acting is cathartic, and you can draw on personal experiences, but then there's some that's a little bit too personal that I don't want to draw on, but it would be entirely impossible to separate. And those are the ones where I'm like, I can't take those ones on. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I love the awareness of that though, right? Like I think some people who going to therapy and having that other person to help you sort through things, like they could go through something like that. They could read a book. They're like, oh, I actually would fit this because I go through it and I could give more emotion, and not realize why they hate the world for the next month or so. Or you know what I mean? Like there are things that happen to us subconsciously that if we don't have the awareness of where it's coming from, it can just kind of destroy our lives a little bit.
Yes, entirely. 100%. There's the most recent books that I'm doing right now is where I realize that it's not a complete no. Like it's not a automatic no if you have that in your book. It's a let me screen it first. Because of a conversation I've had where it's like, if you felt accepted, loved, cared for, if you felt any type of way that you were maybe lacking when you were a kid, when you were listening to these audiobooks, my therapist was talking to me saying this, then, and you can bring authentic experience and allow people to also have that same feeling while narrating these books, maybe you can dedicate those emotions, dedicate that pain, dedicate that session to those possible listeners who needed it just like you did. He's a good therapist, but whatever. So like, I didn't like his. He gets. We have a.
That wasn't what I wanted to hear, John.
I swear. But no, so like that's where we are, and so I now realize as long as I can reframe it enough, and it's still safe, I can take on some. But it's a good way for me to at least look at it, and I do think that authentic casting is huge when it comes to any type of acting, and authentic does not always mean what you think it means. It can be just authentically having a similar experience, not so much looking the same, but similar experiences sometimes is an authentic cast.
I like that. I like that insight on that too. Do you feel like there is still this, now that you've got on this path of narration and you've dipped your toe in, you've been doing it for a year, do you feel like there is still this passion, this calling to do this, and what is motivating you from here on out to continue?
No, okay.
Yes, it stayed the same.
There's no shame in that game, girl. It's not, there's
Still
no shame.
It's still that, but it has grown. Like I said, I did start out with only taking projects that provided a check, projects that paid per hour. However, I did take on, I think we're up to 3 or 4 royalty share, which means I get a part of the royalties from the sale of the book. So I did open myself up to those because I wanted to have the opportunity to do more than nonfiction, which is what I was getting hired to do a lot of. I was getting hired to do a lot of self-help and a lot of how to overcome childhood trauma and grief things, which was good. And I do enjoy nonfiction, but I was like, I want to be Brian Jakes. I want to do 30 voices. I want to do 50 voices. Let me challenge myself. And so I found that in royalty share. And I was able to show that, wow, I do have range and I can do these things. And now I can get hired per hour at an hourly rate for similar types of books. So I do feel like my passion has grown. My motivation remains the same because, hey, I'm still a single mom with 2 kids who are yet again, it's November, October again. And guess what? They both made nationally qualifying teams. Yay, wonderful children. They are great. But oh my gosh.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm very motivated to make money, to support them, to give them what they want, but I'm even more motivated to get better because I love what I'm doing. That is making the money. I am in coaching for dialects. I was in coaching for the business of doing audiobooks and voice acting. I have done coaching for voice act, like just acting lessons. I've done that. I am invested in being better at this because even after they're done with their nationally qualifying teams, I think I want to keep doing this. I love it so much. It's been a long time since I've felt like something really fit me, and this really fits, I think.
I so appreciate that authenticity of like, I think I want to keep doing this. Like,
Mm.
maybe you don't. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like I said, single moms, you do what you gotta do. And at the when they're past all of the team playing, it might be like, okay, cool. That was fun.
Yeah. Right
And
now,
that's
I'm lucky enough that my passions and my priorities align. My passion of doing audiobook narration, and I love my animals, spending time with my animals. Anyways, but my passion of doing audiobook narration and books and my love of reading lines up with, well, it's paying me and it's supporting my priority of my family. Like it is helping to support that, and I get to do something I love. So, but if at any moment they don't align, my priorities will 100% beat my passion. And this might have to move to the side, but right now it aligns. I hope it continues to align. And if I could continue to work with production companies, publishers, if I can go into voice acting, if I could do commercials, if I could be a dub voice actor for Korean reality shows or animes, like it would be so much fun to be able to do all of those things. As long as my passions and my priorities align, I want to keep doing this.
That is so cool. So this whole conversation reminds me of like that one season. It was one season of this epic show, and it was so great, and then they canceled it, right? Like, no matter what this is, it doesn't mean we don't still love that season. It just might not be your thing, and that's okay to walk away from it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that one season was glorious, and that doesn't mean that we don't love it, but we're all very sad that it's canceled from the viewer side because we love and we see your passion, and we're like, this should be the end game for you. But like Kathy said, the authenticity of like, yeah, this is what I'm doing now. We'll see where it is in a couple of years. Like that's fucking awesome, Carmen.
Like, do you guys ever feel like if you say something, people might hold you to it? Because like if I say, oh yeah, I'm totally, give it 3 years, I'm going to be a top narrator. This is definitely happening. This is my career. I will be full-time by the time I'm X age. I won't say the age, but in the next 5 years, I will be full-time, right? Like, no, I just don't feel comfortable putting that goal out there to the ether, to the people. But also, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my
the
life's going to
wide
look
world
like
of
in that.
webs.
Say again?
To the wide world of webs.
Yeah, but I love this. And if I could continue doing it forever, I would. So we'll see.
Yes.
Let's talk animals. Can we talk animals?
Kathy's been waiting. She just wants
Yeah.
you to go get your dog.
You guys want to see my dogs? I can bring them in for a half a second. The color's going to change. I might turn like a bright pink, but we'll see. Or blue. I don't know. You want to come say hi? So this is one. Oh, God. Okay.
Oh.
This is the big one. This is Appa. Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Mwah. Honey. He is a Great Pyrenees German Shepherd mix. We've only had him. I love you too. Yip, yip. And
Oh my
then-
God! And the other one's Yip Yip.
And then no. His release word is yip yip. Like if I want him to go do something, it's literally like Appa. He goes yip yip and he goes away. It's adorable. And then the other one is Roja. Ready?
Roja.
Roja, come on. No, not you. Okay, sorry. We'll get him. He really loves the table. Come here. Roja. Roach. Roach, come on. Not your brother. Roja, come on. Get up here. He really wants to bring his toy. That's why he's struggling. He brought his toy with him. Come. This is the brother. This is Rhodey. This is the one that you met.
You're frozen. Don't let him go yet until you come back.
Am I still frozen?
No, I can see you good.
Oh, there you are.
He left. It's okay. He was really interested in that toy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes. Those are my boys. And then I also have 3 cats and a bunny.
Okay, so your coolness level just went up like 500 million times because Avatar: The Last Airbender was my jam as a kid, and it was the huge inspiration for my first fantasy novel, and so I love that.
I mean, he looks like an Appa. My kid named him. She's like, "That's Appa." I mean, look at him. He's a land bison, but he's
A land bison. Oh, I love it. He's just
yeah.
more of a tundra land bison and not a snowy one.
Yeah, so that's my Appa. And then all of my animals, well, not all of them, but several of them have book inspired names or fantasy inspired names. And so then you've got Roja. His name is Roja because it comes from Crime and Punishment. The main character is Rodion Raskolnikov, but his nickname is Roja. So that's Roja.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
I love that.
Mine
But
is
he's also
Jormungandr, and he is sleeping and being lazy, and we
Oh, is
just
that
call
him?
him Gunner. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, he heard his name.
Oh, I didn't want you over here. Come here.
But yeah, those are my babies. I love my animals. It was my passion before narration. Oh, it's a corgi.
Oh God, you're so fat. There you
Goodness.
go.
Wait, what is that? It's not a corgi.
He's an Augie. He's a corgi Aussie miniature Aussie mix.
Okay.
He's
It's like,
got
wait,
little legs though. He's a low rider.
low
so
rider.
cute.
That's so funny.
But before
Oh
narration,
my
I
God.
was into animal training. And so I would be volunteering at all of my hours that I spend narrating now, I was spending for free. I wasn't getting paid because I didn't have kids that were in sports. Anyways, but no, I would go and volunteer at the animal shelter. And I was learning how to train animals. I had a dog that did a bunch of different sports. That dog had to be rehomed, but she would do dock diving, where you throw the thing off the dock and they jump up and bite it. She would do disc dogs, which is the frisbee sport. She did advanced obedience. Oh, we lost Kathy.
Oh darn it, Kathy.
It
Riverside is just being a pain today.
really is. It really is. I love my animals, though.
There are perks to doing all this on Zoom. I know. I
No,
love that I saw that on your thing was all your animal stuff that you had in there.
they are huge for me. And that was the big passion before narration, and then it turned into narration.
There you are.
Sorry.
Riverside is just being a pain today.
Yeah, the recording just stopped. It's like, your recording stopped. It's like, okay, cool. Thanks.
Love it. Carmen, tell us about any books that you're working on or excited to kind of tell the world about.
Okay. Coming out in 9 days. It is the 17th of November right now. On the 26th of November will be my first ever production company produced audiobook. Also, it will be my first ever dual narration audiobook, meaning I'm only voicing the female main character's point of view chapters. The male main character point of view chapters will be narrated by a co-narrator. That person is Dane Anderson. It is The Tallest Tower. It is a mafia romance series. It's a trilogy, so I will be voicing all 3 books. And they are by Amelia Finn. That's coming out on the 26th of November in 9 days. I am nervous.
Dane is amazing.
So that's
Great.
coming.
But so you're doing the male voices in your point of view. Yeah.
Yes, I am doing the male voices in my point of view chapters. I do have a couple really exciting projects coming up next year where I'll do some more dual narration, meaning I still do the male voices from the female's point of view, but I also have a couple duets and multicast things coming up where I get to, if a female's voice is in the male point of view chapter, I will voice it. Like we get to plug in, to each chapter, patch in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Solo narration projects I have coming up, that actually is under my romance pseudonym, which is Audrey O'Bain. When I do romance, I do it under a pseudonym because I just want there to be one extra click. Because again, the kiddos, right? And their friends. I already had a kid recognize me from my TikTok lives. One of my older daughter's freaking friends was like, "Is your mom's name Carmen?" I was like, "Oh." So hopefully they just saw me and swiped on by and know me as Carmen, and they can look up Carmen and find, Carmen things. But if they click one more click on my romance pseudonym, they'll find that there's some spicy stuff under Audrey O'Bain. That's the romance name. But Carmen has 2 books coming up, and they're probably backwards, but I have them in front of me because I'm currently working on them. But it's by Abigail Wilde. It is a duology
They're
right
not
now, I
backwards.
believe. Oh, they're not? Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's a duology right now, but I believe that there's a 3rd book that might be coming out. The Art of Drowning is these are the ones that are my therapist knows all about these books. It's a lot about mental health awareness for teenagers, for high schoolers, for folks who are really just going through it. It touches on some really heavy topics like eating disorders, PTSD, panic attacks, emotional trauma, child abuse, physical and emotional, drinking parents, alcoholism. It's a lot. It's a
Now,
lot.
is that fiction
And
or nonfiction?
these are they're all nonfiction. Not nonfiction, sorry, they're all fiction. They're all fiction.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all fiction, but yeah, these are heavy topics. These are probably some of the favorite ones I've gotten to narrate because they are so emotional, but it's fun. And those will be solo, so it'll be all my voice.
That's
Yes.
exciting. I might have to look up the Art of Drowning. That one sounds intriguing. I don't know how far I'll get into it because once it starts pulling on my emotions, sometimes I just bounce out. So we'll see.
Yeah, the biggest trigger warnings for the Art of Drowning is going to be the eating disorder, and there is going to be an on-page death. So that does happen in the Art of Drowning. With more than one way to breathe, the biggest trigger warnings, I call it mama trauma, but it's definitely child abuse is the biggest trigger warning for that one. Yeah,
Gotcha.
at least for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's different for other people, right?
Yeah, exactly. They might see it and be like, oh, there's this kid. There was a I guess there's also a miscarriage in that. That might be the bigger
Yeah.
trigger warning for somebody else. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
it's a lot of
I like
it's
the
real
trigger
heavy
warnings.
books.
I know, right? Yeah. But I mean, like you said, it's so cathartic. It can be so cathartic to
Yeah.
go through and read that kind of stuff.
I am very excited about the fact that ever since I started, I had people to ask me, "Oh, so you just narrate nonfiction? You just narrate self help?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I have yet to be put into a box, and I love that. I'm not just romance, but I can do romance. I've gotten hired to do several romance that's coming up. I'm not just YA, which is I guess this would be considered YA. It's very heavy YA, but these books I'm not just YA. These will be I think I have 4 or 5 books of YA that are either under contract or already out. I do nonfiction. I have a biography that I'll be narrating for Spotify audiobooks about a person who went missing, but did they really? So that's coming out. I'm going to start recording that at the end of this month. But like I've been able to do so many different things, and I love that because if you look at my bookshelves, it's everything except for romance. I actually don't have a lot of romance books, but it's everything else. Yeah, I love that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's no boxing, Carmen.
No,
No,
don't put me in a box. This is the only box that you can put me in. This one.
put the baby in a box.
I have to be able to have my microphone. This is my only box.
I love that.
Sure.
Carmen,
Box of shit.
yes. So where can we connect with you? Where can the listeners find you and how can they connect with you if you are out there in the webs?
Well, of course, social media. So I started on Instagram back earlier this year in like March. I started on TikTok earlier this year in April. So I'm Carmen Seantel.narrator on both of those. Chantel is spelled weird, but I'm sure it's going to be somewhere on here. But yes, Carmen Seantel.narrator. I also have my email address, my link tree, and all of those things are up on both of those social media accounts. If you want to find things to listen to that I've narrated, you can go to the Audible catalog, which again, you can find that in my link tree, and just search Carmen Seantel. If you want something a little bit spicier, search Audrey O'Bain. Again, that's in the link tree as well. Eventually, under construction is my website. I am not a techie. It will happen one day. It will happen.
Yeah.
It will.
And link trees are so great. Like I know the websites are awesome and fun to put out there, but link trees are so fantastic for connecting people.
And in terms of for hiring and with authors, if any authors were interested in seeing, oh, well, I liked her voice or I heard you do this, I am on acx.com, which is a very popular one for authors to go to, independent authors to go to and find narrator talent. So I am on there. I'm also on ahab.com, which I think a few publishing houses use. I also work with Spotify audiobooks, Podium Entertainment, and Lyric audiobooks. Those are just some different production companies that work to produce audiobooks.
I love that. Carmen,
Yep.
you are fantastic. I was so excited about this episode because like Kathy said before, we follow you on TikTok, we watch your lives, we join into that conversations that you have on there. So we kind of feel like we know you a little bit, right? And so now we get to share you with
I
everybody
do
else.
know
And
her a
that's
little bit.
exciting.
You do. We
Yeah, you
met.
know her more than me.
Died in front of you.
We're friends. I
Friends.
consider us friends.
Yeah, definitely.
This was fantastic. And I love the conversations that we had here. So I'm so excited for everyone to listen to this episode.
Yes, definitely. I'm
Yes,
so glad that you guys could, have me here and were interested in interviewing me. And yeah, just thank you for having me.
I
absolutely.
don't think this will
Thank
be our
you.
last time seeing you. So,
No.
Okay.
all right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of L3. We can't wait to see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening,